Vaping is illegal in Singapore, but that's not stopping some people from picking it up and doing it regularly.
The number of people who use e-cigarettes or heated tobacco products is on the rise. Vaping is not necessarily a better alternative to smoking cigarettes.
I heard from like a couple of my cousins who are millennials that it's reached the primary school group now, which is interesting. So I would say now the age range can range from like 11 to like adults.
Very common, and usually it's at the clubs.
There's a lot of youngsters vaping, ranging from secondary school to like college. Walking down the street, you already can see like teenagers vaping already. Yeah.
Why is this happening? Before we go into that, here's some context. Vaping was first banned in Singapore in 2018, and even though there are several penalties like jail time or fines, people have still been caught vaping here or trying to bring vape supplies into Singapore. Those caught possessing or using vapes jumped by 60% between 2022 and 2023. And health authorities say that in the 4 years leading up to 2023, a quarter of those caught under the age of 18 were repeat offenders.
The data from the past 5 years have been very worrying, in the sense that we have clearly seen an uptick in the number of people that have been engaging in vaping-related activities. And it's not just the adults, it's the youth as well. So from the youth perspective, youth, adolescents, young children, that's where we become even more worried, because there's already data locally from Singapore as well as worldwide to suggest that vaping is a much bigger problem than regular tobacco cigarettes ever was in the whole history of smoking.
So, back to the question. Despite being banned in Singapore, why is vaping a growing problem in the country?
I think part of it is the international pressure, because even though vaping is banned in Singapore, it's legal in a lot of other countries, and especially our neighbouring countries. I mean, in Malaysia and Indonesia, they both have quite large and quite thriving vape markets. So with that, inevitably, there's going to be more of a flow of vapes into the nearby countries.
The World Health Organization had to launch a global call to action last December to clamp down on youth and adolescents vaping, precisely because this is a problem that is getting out of hand. We cannot tackle vaping with traditional approaches that we use for tobacco control. We have to innovate. We have to be smarter at finding who these people are that are vaping, trying to clamp down on social supply of the vapes, and making sure that the penalty for anyone that is bringing in vapes is a lot higher.
And that leads us to the next question: how harmful is vaping? To understand that, here's a quick look inside the average vaping device. Inside the cartridge is the vape liquid, which can contain nicotine and comes in all sorts of flavors like candy, fruits, and even peanut butter.
There are so many substances within the vape itself that has potential to cause a lot of damage within the lungs, within the heart, within the immune system. And we still don't know, because it's a new kid on the block, right? It's really just started maybe about 10 to 15 years ago. But there are already potential agents that can cause cancer within the vape tools itself. So if you're not feeling anything, it doesn't mean that vaping is not affecting your health. One of the main things is that they get very bad oxygenation within the lungs. You get a lot of scarring, you get a lot of angry inflammation within the lungs. Some even end up in the ICUs or the intensive care unit, requiring all sorts of invasive materials just to keep the person alive.
Countries like New Zealand and the UK regulate vaping, and they say that this could help people to stop smoking. But some say that this could ultimately create another problem.
There's one study that showed that if we were to use vape as a tool for cigarette smokers to stop smoking versus nicotine replacement therapy, it is found that yes, they do stop cigarette smoking better as compared to the nicotine replacement group. But however, then you will find that this group of people who were previously addicted to cigarettes, now moving on to addiction to vape.
So what would it take to stop people from vaping?
I think awareness is important as well, and also like why like finding out the root cause of why people vape. Like, is it because of stress, and then how can we, find other ways to mitigate stress rather than actually looking at vaping?
I think the only way to deter people from doing it is to raise awareness about why it's truly harmful to your body. The same way that we're taught why smoking is bad, I feel like the same thing should be done with vaping, instead of just this whole vaping is legal, you shouldn't do it. Because, I mean, that doesn't work with anything. You're not actually going to regulate it if you're not teaching children why it's truly wrong.
Since awareness is key, I asked Yvette about her thoughts on how to do that.
This younger generation is pretty good at finding information, right? All you need to do is go online, use some AI tools, you can get any information you want. But really being able to discern between credible information and information that is not, that is a different story. And the problem with the vaping issue is that the vaping industry has been funding a lot of scientific research, which is honestly junk. In, I think it was 2019, where they reviewed over 800 scientific articles about vaping. And they found that about a quarter of them were industry funded. Yeah, and out of the ones that were funded by the tobacco industry, they were 60 times more likely to conclude that vaping is a good thing. I think teaching them on the conflicts of interest is very important. I think also teaching youth on how they're being manipulated by the industry on social media is important, because a lot of them, they're logging into their social media, seeing all these people vaping, and they think everyone is doing it, when in fact that's not a reflection of the reality, that's just a few influencers who are doing it.
I also found out what's being done in schools.
The monitoring of vaping uptake in school, it's an important element of any national strategy against vape.
Besides enforcement checks, our schools and IHLs have stepped up preventive education to convey the harmful effects of vaping on one's health. We seek the cooperation of families and the wider community to reinforce these messages strongly to stem this worrying trend.
Vaping also leave behind a telltale signature in their urine, in their saliva, which can be detected with test kits. And these test kits are currently being used by HSA in enforcement in schools together with the Ministry of Education. But the question is, can we use them in a way that it's able to send a very clear message and at the same time detect the scale of the problem that we truly have in Singapore?
So what's a good way to send that message and figure out the scale of the problem? Professor Teo thinks it's about regular testing.
This is really where you can think about running, just choosing one day a year and then rolling out a whole of Singapore test, just one particular cohort, and we test every school in Singapore at a point in time. And we make it very clear, students that are identified them will be granted amnesty for that particular time, but at the same time, we have a lot of information in terms of who the offenders are, what are the profiles of the offenders. It has never been tried before. It's one of the crazy ideas.
Right now in Singapore, if you're caught using a vape, you could be fined up to 2,000 Singapore dollars. If you're caught selling, importing, or doing anything to make it available, you could be fined up to 10,000 Singapore dollars, go to jail for 6 months, or both. And this could double if you're caught a second or third time, and so on. But the question is, are these penalties really enough?
I think it should be harsher, so that when they get fined, they will learn their lesson.
Maybe they don't see it as enforced, so maybe they're not that scared yet. Well, I'm not too sure, because I feel like sometimes if they want to do it, they will always find a way to do it. Yeah.
The government has said that health authorities are reviewing the penalties.
HSA has been monitoring illicit sales of e-vaporizers via social media, e-commerce and messaging platforms, and carrying out operations to remove e-vaporizer content. HSA is trying to expand its efforts and is reviewing the legal penalties to strengthen the deterrence against advertising, importation and distribution of e-vaporizers.
If we just look anecdotally at the number of people who are vaping, clearly either they are not aware of the penalty or they are rather disdainful of the penalty. For smugglers, I think they clearly see that the profits that they potentially will make is actually way higher than any risk that they encounter. So from that perspective, if you balance it with a potential profit margin that is measured in millions of dollars, you would immediately see potential imprisonment of 1 year, millions of dollars profit. That's a no-brainer. I do think that there is a space for reviewing the penalties for suppliers where the penalties are actually measured against the size of the haul that they are caught against. So if they're bringing $2 million worth of vaporizers, the penalty will be way higher. And I think this is where Singapore can be an example in establishing what kind of rules we put in place to deter smuggling.